Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and excited to be back with you in the sense of I haven't recorded a podcast in a couple months. I just got back from our 6-week immersion trip to the Cotswolds in England, and I wanted to do a solo episode when we got back to discuss that and some of the things I thought about, learned, some of the just ideas around it, things I think you can take from it and apply to your own life and practice. So I wanted to kind of do a post 6-week trip episode, and I batched all my episodes leading up to that trip. So this is the first recording since being back. It was, I love podcasting. I mean, we're in our MCM, this podcast is in its 9th year. I've been podcasting for 10 years. We had the Modern Desk Jockey podcast prior to that. You could still look at those old episodes. That was pretty cool. But yeah, it was something that I love podcasting, but I also love taking little breaks. I think this is the second time I've taken a 2-month break, and I just batch really well to be able to do that. So you got to hit it hard on podcasting for a while to be able to batch those 8 episodes. But here we are. We're back. We're back. But let's go into the kind of backstory of this 6-week trip. I've told it before, and it was pretty cool when I was gone, and I had posted on social media a few times, and people had reached out to me, it was like, I remember when you mentioned this years ago that you wanted to do it. It's cool to see you finally do it. And yeah, this was years ago. This was, my wife and I have 2 boys, 6 and 4 now, and we had thought of this idea prior to our first child being born. I had actually first heard of the idea in my strategic coach meeting. I think it was in 2018, could have been 17 or 19. The years are flying by, but there was an older gentleman in our group that had talked about, he had just got back from a 6-week trip to Scotland, him and his wife. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And then when I kind of thought about that idea, Laura and I weren't married at the time. We were together. And then we kind of floated the idea, and I was like, I'd love to do it. And we have kids and get them immersed into different areas of the world for 6 weeks. And so we had set a goal for when our kids were the youngest. We have 2, and we're stopping at 2. We always wanted 2, and with the grace of God, we were given 2. And we said when our youngest was 4, we would start doing it. We didn't really want to do it with babies and toddlers. So we had earmarked once our second child was born in 2022. It's like, let's make it the summer of 2026. And here we are. It took a lot of effort, took a lot of vision around it. It was not always a smooth process to get to it. It wasn't smooth leading up to it. It wasn't always smooth during it. But I think that's part of the experience, right? And some of the times you have to make those sacrifices and know that it's not always going to be rainbows and sunshine when you do something big in your life. And this was obviously big for us. And I want to challenge you, not like, I don't, care if you want to do 6 weeks. This is definitely not for everybody. I definitely had a little bit of kid fatigue after 4 weeks. We spent a lot of time together, which is great. And we'll do it each year. Every summer we're going to do a different place, and I love it. But what would be a big vision for you if you are, if you have a significant other, or you have kids or family, or not, like, but it doesn't have to be in your personal, it could be in your professional, it could be both. But that's where I think the R factor question from strategic coach plays such a big part of getting clear on what your vision is, right? And I've mentioned the R factor before, but I'm going to do it again. And that simply is if we were meeting here 3 years from today, and you were to look back over those 3 years to today, what has to have happened during that period, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy about your progress? And this is a great, we ask this question to all of our prospective coaching clients. I email it to them when they fill out the form on our website to have a discussion with us. And we ask that question because I want to know. I want to see where their vision is, because our goal as a coaching company is to help you reach your goal. And if we can't tease that out of you, then how are we going to get there? Because coaching is more than just like improving your OVA and your new patients and things. Those are definitely part of the process, but we try to have a bigger vision for our clients. And the R factor question is one that you can ask and, like, push yourself on this. Like, what would it look like for you and your family or yourself to do something big in your life or profession that's a little uncomfortable? Because frankly, this was very uncomfortable, right? To be able to do this trip, but very well worth it for sure. So I'd love for you to answer that question and just jot down, take a pen and paper and write down. Again, if you were meeting here 3 years from today and you were to look back over those 3 years to today, what has to have happened during that period, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy about your progress? And I remember I've answered that question. I've been a part of Strategic Coach since 2013. And I've answered that question quite a few different times over the years. But this was our vision, right? And it was even a little bit longer than 3 years when we first started it. But one of the things that I knew I needed to do is have self-managing company. And in my case, 2 self-managing companies, a private practice and MCM. And frankly, I couldn't have done this trip without my team at MCM. Becky, just really runs the show and it really allows for that. I couldn't do it without my team with Dr. Gage and Kayla and everybody and our interns that we have and our staff at the office. So there's just no doubt I couldn't have done that. And you have to build a self-managing company. You should be able to you should be wanting to do that anyway. And it really helps you to, even if it's just like, I just know a lot of chiropractors that struggle to be able to take, a 1 or 2 week vacation, and it shouldn't be that way. And it's a little bit later in this episode, I'm going to talk about how you can do that, even if you don't have another doctor working in the clinic, right? So having a self-managing company is really, really vital for your life and for your world there. And so that was something that I know I needed to do. And I teased out what that looked like for both my businesses. And that was ultimately the roadmap for me to be able to get there, was have a self-managing company. And yeah, definitely there was like finances of being able to afford to do the trip. This is an immersion trip we did. So it wasn't like necessarily we're going out to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner like you do on vacations. Like we had a cottage and a full, kitchen and all the things, and we would grocery shop and cook. Yeah, we went out to dinner here and there and lunch here and there, and we did day trips here and there, and we did stuff like that. But it was really, frankly, we didn't spend more money while we were there than we do in our personal life. So it wasn't like that was a lot. Now the cottage was an added expense. The flights, I got a lot of that paid for by points because we do. I do a very, I don't want to call it intricate, but definitely have a plan. We spend a good amount of money on both businesses on our credit cards and points and this and that with all the mastermind stuff, and so we use a lot of points for the flights and the rental car. Definitely, that was the other thing is I drove for 5.5 weeks on the wrong side of the car, wrong side of the road. And a lot of the roads only can fit one car and you have to pull off when another car's coming at you. So I learned how to drive really well there. It's my 3rd time driving in the UK. I shouldn't say just the UK, but the UK and Ireland. Drove through Scotland 1 year, drove through Ireland 1 year, and then now England. And so getting better at it. But yeah, there was some added cost, but nothing crazy. But then, yeah, when I left the practice and the summer months were slower, I paid myself less out of the practice for it. So there was things I had to figure out financially and do all that. And that's where planning and having a vision, like, 'cause if you don't have a crystal clear vision on what you want to achieve, then it's really hard to reverse engineer it to get it done, right? And that's where you need to. I really implore you to do that, and that's something I think we do a great job with our clients, is getting clear on that vision and then kind of step by step getting there. Chiropractors, if your website traffic or Google Maps visibility has felt a little unpredictable lately, you're not imagining it. A lot is changing behind the scenes. AI is reshaping how search results show up. Competition in the map pack is getting tougher, and simply ranking well does not always translate into new patients. That's why Propel Marketing and Design is hosting a free chiropractic SEO workshop. You'll learn what's actually changing with Google Maps, how AI is impacting the way patients find and choose clinics, and what small, realistic updates you can make this year to stay visible and competitive. This is not a high-level talk or a bunch of jargon. It's a practical step-by-step workshop built for busy clinic owners who want clear direction and next steps they can actually implement. Save your spot for free at propelyourcompany.com/MCM-SEO-workshop-2026, and we'll see you there. So one of the things I also did when I was there was I took a hiatus from listening to podcasts. I'm a huge podcast listener. Sometimes I get overwhelmed with all the podcasts that I'm trying to listen to and catch up with. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to listen to any podcast episodes. And I gave myself the ability to save one podcast episode from the various ones per week. And then I would listen to those when I got back, so I could save 6, which I did. And I just wanted to, I kind of wanted to take a little bit of an information diet from the podcasts. I didn't want to sit there and be listening to podcasts all the time like I kind of do at work and things and traveling and gym. And so I did take a break from that. But what I did do was I picked out 2 audiobooks that I was listening to. I did sign up for a month gym when I was in England. So I did work out and I would listen to it, or I get up early. And so I'd listen to it sometimes before the kids got up. And those 2 books were really good, actually. I really, really enjoyed it. One was What to Make of a Life by Jim Collins. Jim Collins is the, From Good to Great fame. And so he had a book called What to Make of a Life. And then another book called The Earned Life. And that is by Marshall Goldsmith. And that was a good book as well. And you can kind of see a theme there. I don't want you to think going through a midlife crisis, right? But I had heard about these books. I heard about them before. And I was like, I'm going to save them for that trip. I think that'll be good to do. I didn't want to do like a heavy business book. I was reading a biography when I was physically reading a book, so I didn't want to listen to necessarily a biography. And so what I did was I listened to these 2 books, and I got some really good nuggets out of that. It was pretty applicable to certain things that we're going to talk about in this episode and that we all have in practice. I kind of posted about it a little bit as well because I said to myself, it's like, the book title, What to Make of a Life, and then The Earned Life, I had posted in the Facebook group when I was in England, was like, it's kind of, you could relabel it What to Make of a Career or What to Make of a Chiropractic Practice, and the Earned Career or the Earned Chiropractic Practice. And I think if you listen to these books and you start to apply that to your life and to your practice, it really makes a lot of sense. But a couple things I wanted to take from each book was, let's start out with What to Make of a Life by Jim Collins. He talks about the fog, and the fog is the disorienting period that follows a cliff, which a cliff is a life-altering event, job loss, scandal, an ended career, a death, a major success that leaves you asking, what now? He did a good job of giving a ton of examples throughout history and current day of people that have experienced this cliff. And sometimes it wasn't like, he gave an example of 2 NFL players from like the 1970s who had great careers, and then the ending of a professional sports career is obviously a cliff. And then they went into something else. One went into politics, the other one went big into philanthropy, and just had this whole like second act that was in their minds just as big as their first act. And he talked about some, some actors who did that. He talked about some business people that have done that, gave a lot of examples of people that reached a cliff. And again, it doesn't mean you're like, I'm at the cliff and it's all bad, but just it's an end to something, right? It's an end to something. And like for me, it resonated was because when I left for my trip, I exited patient care. And so I'm taking my second stab at exiting patient care and really focusing on MCM. And that's a cliff for me, right? That's a cliff. It's a life-altering event, not in a bad way, but it can be, a cliff can be a good ending, right? A necessary ending. And so Collins found that even his most accomplished subjects went through real stretches of confusion and lost identity after a cliff. The fog isn't a sign of failure. It's a normal, near universal stage between the old life and whatever comes next. Collins himself experienced this as a teenager after a failed attempt to reconnect with his estranged father, which is part of what drove him into writing the book. Okay, so it can be something that's, not positive as well. It can be a positive ending. It can be a negative ending. It's the cliff, and then it's followed by kind of a fog. I think a lot of you listening can think about times in your life, and I've had them where you're just in that fog because you've just had that cliff moment, right? And so then he talks about the kind of the third part of this, which he labels as simplex stepping, is his answer to how you get through the fog. Rather than needing a fully formed plan or destination, you take the best next step visible from where you're standing. See what that reveals, and then take the next step, best step for the new position. So if you're leaving chiropractic school and you're becoming a doctor, like that's a cliff, right? And you're going to be in the fog as an early DC, almost guaranteed. And then you got a simplex step, right? Take the best next step visible from where you currently are standing and see what that reveals. And then take the next best step from the new position. Repeated over time, these small non-committal moves compound into clarity and eventually a new identity. His example is Katharine Graham, who spent 7 years, simplex stepping into her role at the Washington Post, one modest decision at a time, before the Pentagon Papers and Watergate gave her the moment to show who she'd become. He goes a whole story into that, right? And so the concepts that sit inside this framework, basically, he has a framework that is cliffs, fog, and fire, right? A cliff disrupts your life. The fog is the disorientation that follows, and simplex stepping is the mechanism for finding your way through the fog towards a renewed sense of purpose, which he labels as that new fire, right? That new fire is that new sense of purpose. And again, bringing it back to my scenario now is like my fire right now is to take MCM to even bigger levels than it already is, right? But there's going to be a little bit of fog. There was fog when I was on my trip for 6 weeks. And that's why it was great to listen to this book first when I got there. It was really nice to have that and say, yeah, this is where I'm at right now. I'm kind of in the fog, but I've got a fire, and I just got to keep on simplex stepping and trust the process, because it's hard to trust the process sometimes. And I think all of you can relate to that either currently in your situation or in the past, or at least maybe everything's great for you right now and you haven't had the cliff yet. But when you do, because it's going to come, it always does, and usually there's multiple, you'll have this to be able to look back on and maybe reread this book. Let's take a short break from today's episode to tell you about the best decision I've made in my clinic in the last 10 years, and that has been adding shockwave therapy to our clinic. The outcomes have been really impressive. Certain conditions we were struggling with in the past, we're now seeing results with the shockwave therapy for that. And second of all, the ROI has been really good. When you make a big investment in something, you want to see a return, and we're seeing that return in clinical outcomes and in our investment, and that's been really nice to see. I chose Keenest Medical for 4 reasons. One is the technology is top-notch. You have to have great technology. There's a lot out there that isn't quite up to snuff. The second thing is they have a really good clinical training. They have an exclusive partnership with Academy of Shockwave Excellence so that you can become clinically proficient in shockwave. You do need to get skilled at it. I think that's a big differentiator between practices that are getting great results and seeing the ROI is they have a great clinical aspect to that as well. So you want to get trained appropriately. Third is they have in-house service team for all of your technical support, which is key when you're investing in a machine like this. And then lastly, they have a very in-depth marketing and business support for you so that you can launch this into your practice effectively, that you can get that ROI on it, that you can get the clinical outcomes. And they also have really good financing options if you need that. So go to kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, mention MCM podcast and receive a free Shockwave in practice book with a purchase of a unit. So that's kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, and mention MCM podcast. All right. So then the second book, The Earned Life by Marshall Goldsmith. One thing I loved about him is he has the AAA framework, and that is aspiration, followed by ambition, followed by action. Okay. So his core framework has three parts that have to work together. Aspiration is the pursuit of something bigger than any single goal, a way of being or serving others that has no finish line. Example, be a better parent, live with integrity, or you just want to be the best doctor and you want to serve and you want to have a great standing in the community as a chiropractor. You have the career aspiration, right? And you may have some mentors and role models that you look up to and you aspire to be, right? And so again, just to reread that is you need to have an aspiration, the pursuit of something bigger than any single goal, a way of being or serving others that has no finish line. And then the ambition is a specific time-bound goal with a defined endpoint, right? You hit it, then set a new one. Okay, so there's an ambition within that aspiration, right? So your aspiration as a chiropractor is to have a great career, be a servant, get people better, enjoy what you're doing. And you're an associate right now. That's awesome. But you have an ambition of owning your practice at some point. That would be a time-bound goal. That would be an ambition that is serving your aspiration. And then third is action. What you actually do moment to moment and day to day. And I think this is where a lot of chiropractors struggle. Kind of going back to the R factor question, the R factor question is going to be really the ambition, right? A 3-year time window maybe, but it serves an overall aspiration. And then the actions that you need to do to get there. A lot of chiropractors don't have the ambition or not, or they're not clear on the ambition. And or some chiropractors that are only doing it for the money and they're not really patient-centered, they're lacking on the aspiration side of things. But then frankly, a lot of chiropractors struggle on the action, like what you actually do moment to moment and day to day that's going to help you achieve your ambition, that goal, that's going to then serve the aspiration that you have. His point is that aspiration and ambition alone are just intentions. An earned life only happens when your daily actions actually align with your ambitions and your aspirations. Ambition without matching action is wishful thinking, right? So let me reread that. Ambition without matching action is wishful thinking. Action without ambition or aspiration is just busy work with no direction. That happens all the time, not just the chiropractors, but think about all the people that are busy doing what, right? So action without ambition or aspiration is just busy work with no direction. So you got to have the aspiration, the ambition, and the action all in line, serving each other, and that's how you have an earned life. He talks about another thing here. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but he talks about his LPR, which is Life Plan Review. This is the practical tool for closing the gap between what you intend and what you do. modeled on a business review routine Goldsmith learned from former Ford CEO Alan Mulally. The LPR is a structured, recurring, typically weekly check-in where you score yourself against a short set of active questions. Things like, did I do my best to pursue X goal today? And, and frankly, like listening to these two books and everything, I think it's going to help me be a better coach. I'm going to apply some of this stuff with people. I'm going to really make sure they have the aspiration, ambition, and action. It's going to help them get even clearer on the vision that our clients have so that we can help them even better, right? So the idea that LPR is really measuring and reporting on your own follow through repeatedly and honestly is what actually converts stated ambitions into lived action. And it's follow through, not intention, that determines whether you end up with regret or fulfillment, right? I mean, so many people live with regret versus fulfillment, right? And so where would this information from What to Make of a Life and the Earn Life would resonate with you, and how could you apply that to your life and your your personal life and professional life, and how can you get even better? And that will segue me into the biography I was reading. Every morning I was getting up and reading. I didn't finish it. It's a Churchill biography. It's actually 3 books. I brought one that was 800 pages and made it through a good chunk of it. But I just love history. I was in England. I was like, why not? A better time to do that. And it was fascinating to read the Churchill book as I'm listening to What to Make of a Life and the Earn Life. So if you know, like Churchill he was involved with World War I as a decision maker. And I think it was Gallipoli. He just had a massive error. Like it really derailed his political career for like over a decade. And that was his cliff and fog. But and then he just kept simplex stepping through that. And ultimately, in World War II, he had that second act there, and that fire was what helped him with that. And then if you think about an Earn Life, I mean, he was very aspirational, very ambitious, and he took the actions over a long period of time. He wasn't a perfect individual. Had a very, even though he was born very wealthy. Actually, it was ironic too. It kind of worked out. We went to a Michael Bublé concert, and it was in a palace, massive grounds and palace. This whole thing was awesome. It was actually the palace that Churchill was born in, right? So he came from a ton of money and prominence over like centuries, actually. But his parents were pretty horrendous, and he didn't have a great childhood. So it was fascinating to see how he worked through that. So that was a book I read and still working through it. I'm going to keep reading it. It's been really good on that. I want to tell you about something my clinic has recently integrated because I think it's relevant to much of what we talk about on this show. If you're maxed out and can't take new patients, or patients are getting better and just leaving, you don't have a clinical problem, you have a systems problem. That's what P2P Pathway solves for you. It's a model that takes your patients from rehab into ongoing strength and performance programming inside your existing practice using Tonal's AI-driven equipment. No trainer required, no separate gym build out. The result is recurring monthly revenue that doesn't depend on how many patients you can personally see in a day. They run live seminars where they walk you through the entire system, hands-on, in person. Attendees also get exclusive discounts on equipment, including Tonal, that you can't get anywhere else. Seats are limited. The link is in the show notes. If you're serious about adding a recurring revenue stream to your practice, this is worth your 2 days. So check out www.p2ppathway.com. A couple other things. I'm going to write a new book. We had our first book that was in 2019, came out in early 2020, right before the pandemic, ironically. And it's time to that was a marketing book. We're going to write a business book for chiropractors, starting to framework that out. I have no timelines for it. I'm not putting myself under pressure. I wrote my other book. I legitimately wrote that book, Park University, edited and produced it. And I mean, it was a whole thing. It wasn't like one of those books that you write for just marketing purposes to get lead magnets and stuff like that, like a lot of people do. It was a real in-depth book, and I know many of you read it, and it came with a workbook. So I'm gonna, do another book that's gonna be a real book and not just like a lead magnet book like a lot of people do around business. So I'm excited about that. Again, no time frame on it, but it's gonna happen. All right. So the other thing we did was in London on June 20th, we had our patient experience masterclass. Me and Chris Chippendale co-host that. That was really, really fun. Two buddies of mine own board game cafes in London. There's a couple of them where it's a really cool like restaurant bar and you can play board games, and they have a meeting area in there, and we hosted in there with AV and the whole thing. And we had a lot of UK chiropractors there, and we got a ton of good feedback on the class. And then we stayed in at dinner and played board games with like 8 of us, including my wife and kids, and came. And it just was like, just a really wonderful time. And I learned a lot from Chris. I learned a lot from our attendees that were there. It just was really nice. A few of them I had communication with over the years and got to meet them in person. That was just really, really good. I'm going to do a patient experience class in Boca Raton, Florida in September. You can email me. I don't have any of the information right now, but if you want to be on a list for that, kevin@modern-jockey.com. I'm going to make it reasonably priced. It'll be here in our office. We can set this up as a nice lecture area. We can fit up to like 25 people in it. We got tables and smart boards and the whole 9 yards for AV. So we're going to do it here. I'll do it myself. Chris won't be able to make it over for that, but it was really cool. Really, really enjoyed that. And then lastly, I kind of mentioned like how to take a vacation, right? So a lot of you, it's hard to do 1 or 2 weeks. And I really implore you to find a way to make that part of your year. And even if you have to shut the office down, what I've coached people to do before is look, okay, how much, let's just take 2 weeks. If you take 2-week vacation, how much revenue do you typically make in a week, right? So let's just say you make $10,000 in a week. So if you took 2 weeks off, you would lose $20,000 in revenue. Let's say the vacation costs you $8,000, so you got $28,000 there, right? To figure out, and you would want to use a sinking fund. Now, let's say the $28K. I'm going to shave off 3,000 of that, and I'm just going to bring it down to 25K, because oftentimes what happens is when you do leave for a 2-week vacation, you see more people the week before you leave than you usually would have that week, and you see more people the week that you get back than you usually would have. So you make a little bit more money that week before you leave, and a little bit more money the week after you get back. And so just shave off a few. So just make easy numbers, $25,000 that you need. And what you would want to do is prepare ahead of time, a year in advance, and say, okay, I want 17,000. I'm going to want $16,000 in my business saved up for that loss of revenue, and I need $8,000 in my personal life for the vacation, right? So in your personal life, you start a year's worth, and let's just say you put in $650 a month into a sinking fund earmarked for vacation, right? So it's worked into your budget every month. You move $650 from your checking account into your personal savings account. So you're saving for the actual vacation. And then on your business side, you say, you know what, I need over this next year, I need $1,250 a month is going to go from my operating account to a savings account to save for that loss of revenue. You save it up. Then when you leave for your trip, you move that $16,000 from your sinking fund savings account back to your operating account for buffer. People still get paid, bills get paid, and things like that. And that's just frankly how you prepare for a vacation if you're a solo provider and you do not have an associate doctor. If you have an associate doctor, you might have a little bit of lost revenue and you can prepare for that, but it's a lot less obviously than if you don't have an associate doctor. But the benefits of taking these vacations. I can't explain it to you enough how important it is for your longevity, for your family, for your mental health, for burnout prevention, for enjoyment of life, for all the things, right? It really helps create a deep life, which Cal Newport would talk about. Okay. So I just wanted to leave you with that. My trip was awesome. It wasn't all perfect, and that is okay. There's, again, challenges in MCM going into it. There was challenges in my health fit practice going into it. There was challenges with kids when we were there. There's travel things and delayed flights. I'm like, it's not easy to do 6 weeks, but it was well worth doing it. And I challenge you to come up with what's worth for you and your family to do and work towards making that happen. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos. We help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.